Reset.
All right. If you are currently listening to us, thank you so much. You have made it to episode 8 of the Binge-worthy podcast. Here at Binge-worthy podcast, we discuss and review the historical, social, and cultural connections in film and TV. I am your co-host G. Oliver. I'm here with Nate Couser, and we have a very, very special guest tonight. We are going to be discussing comic book movies, everything that related to comic book and its evolution in film. We will be discussing tonight. So I had to bring in a special guest. I'd like y'all to help me welcome Mr. Jacob Mayberry, aka Black Chakra. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, bro. What's up with y'all?
Not much, not much. So, Black Chakra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, first of all, my name is Black Chakra, aka Waka Chakra Flames, aka Chakra Style, Chakra Style, aka Boom Chakra Laka, aka Chakra Namakan, aka Chakra Khan, aka Nomad Black, aka Chakra 316, aka Cactus Black, aka Chakra Omega, aka your mother's favorite son. What's good, shorty?
What's good? What's good? My man got like 14 AKAs. How do you decide which one? Like, do you introduce yourself like differently depending on where you at, or is there like a running tally and like whichever is most popular, that's where you at?
So I usually do all of them, but I always introduce myself differently with my many women. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hey man, sometimes you got to keep up appearances, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, some girls is dating Jacob, some girls is dating Jorge. You know what I'm
oh
saying?
man, yeah. I'm not even going to go into the stories around that. Like, it's not that type of podcast. um, so you got an album on the way. So like for any of y'all that don't know, uh, Jacob Black Chakra is an artist extraordinaire. I've actually worked with him directly. He's come down and taught poetry to some of my students. Um, but you got an album coming out. At least when I look at your Facebook posts of late, it seems like you about to drop an album. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I saw a music video, man, that I was really impressed with. It was like no shiny suits, no flashy, nothing. It was like black and white. It was in a hallway. It was real grimy. It took me back to like my Wu-Tang days. You know what I mean? Like it was real like quintessential gritty 90s type of vibe to it. Tell us about this upcoming project.
So the upcoming project is a boom bap hip hop album, and it's called Cripplet Crossface. All the tracks are named after pro wrestlers. That's the type of time I'm on. I seen Griselda be flexing. Griselda be flexing with that shit. I'm just like, I'm way big of a wrestling fan than y'all. But yeah, like there's so much great quality hip hop coming out in 2020. See Royce, see Nas, see Buster. There's so much great quality hip hop. I just wanted to put a hip hop project out within the lexicon of this, and it'll be on all streaming platforms by December 31st. If I'm feeling the mixes, I might drop it earlier, but I got that's a lot of mixes, a lot of things I want to perfect before I release this. It's the first album I've released to like the public because I've been making rap CDs. I just haven't been releasing my product to the public for a long time, but I'm real confident in this album, how it came out. And for the video, yeah, I was like, look, I don't want to overcomplicate nothing. I grabbed my man's with an iPhone. I called like hella my niggas. I told them, show up to this location with black hoodies on. And like,
it was that simple.
Yeah, hip hop don't need the glitz and glamour when you can rap. Like Wu-Tang made millions off of this right here. Like I'm gonna put on my hoodie, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna stand in front of a camera and rap. Don't need no sexy women, don't need none of that and shit like that. But yeah, that's the first single, Bruiser Brody. You can find it on my Instagram, Black Chakra 88. So my Facebook as well, Jacob Mayberry, Tesla Black Chakra Facebook page. Yeah, go get the views up on that. That shit crazy. Absolutely, especially if you like that real hip hop, that Cool G rap, that boot camp click. Yeah, I'm on that shit. I can't wait for y'all to hear the album.
All right, bro. Well, look, we wish you the very best with that. It's going to be available by December 31st. It is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Crippler Crossface by Black Chakra is going to be available on all streaming platforms December 31st or before. Definitely check that out. I think you'll be very pleased, especially if you are old school. Like if you enjoy lyrics, you're gonna enjoy this, right? This is the brother that's grounded in poetry, and I feel like when it comes to hip hop, you always gonna get a little better, a little more substantive and classier bars when you're dealing with someone who has a grounding in poetry, man. So definitely looking at on gonna be on the lookout for that. So I'm gonna put you through a lightning round real quick, Black Shock, because we talking about comic book movies. So I gotta put you through a real quick lightning round.
Let's
All
go.
Right. First thing come to your mind. All right. Comic books, DC versus Marvel.
DC.
DCEU versus MCU.
MCU.
Swamp Thing versus the Toxic Avenger.
Swamp Thing.
Batman versus Superman.
Depends on the writer. Superman. I'm a loyalist.
Superman?
I'm a loyalist, bro. Superman's
okay,
my guy.
I can respect that. All right, here's the last one. Who's the best superhero team?
Out of all of them?
Out of all of them. First
Justice
one come
League.
to your mind. Justice League.
League.
Okay. Dope. Moving into, so we're gonna talk about comic book movies. Nate, my co-host, is not really big into comic books or the comic book movies, right? So he kind of passed this episode off to me. Last week we did a really groovy musical episode, which I had to really take all my direction from him because he was much more versed in the musical than I was. So this was a difficult one for me because I had to narrow it down. We usually talk about 8 projects per episode. So I had to try and find a way to narrow it down to the 8 projects that I felt like, from a cultural perspective, the impact that they had really kind of moved this genre of film forward or set some type of groundbreaking precedent with it. And I know I didn't, you got to choose 8. And I think there's way more than 8, but these are my 8 that I came up with. So tonight we're going to discuss at length. We're going to discuss Batman, the original 1989, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson.
Classic.
We're going to talk about Blade, Wesley Snipes, the original Blade.
Changed my life.
The Dark Knight, Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan.
Unbeatable to me.
The recently wrapped Watchmen TV series on HBO.
Shock.
Spiderman 2. Lucifer, the TV show. Spider-Man Far From Home. And Spawn, the animated series.
These are some great movies and television shows in this category. I love it already.
All right. So let's jump right in. Batman, 1989. You got this well-known actor for the comedy genre playing this really just on paper pretty dark superhero, and you have this like thespian legend in Jack Nicholson, right? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Chinatown Jack Nicholson playing the Joker. Tell us about how impactful was that on you? How did that advance? What impact did that original Batman film have on the comic book movie genre as a whole? Let's talk.
Well, one, before I even start, let me just say I'm a cinephile, big movie fan. So I was aware of who Jack Nicholson was by the time I saw this movie and who Michael Keaton was. As a kid, my parents big in the film. That being said, it was a big thing for people. Like the 80s was an interesting time where casting choices were made that really had to push an actor. Like when Bruce Willis played in Die Hard, everybody saw the trailer and was like, this is a joke. It's the nigga from Moonlighting. He's a comedic actor. Yeah. But they saw him in that role and realized, oh, John McClane is an average man. So Bruce Willis makes sense for this action role. Now Bruce Willis is an action god, but at the time he's a comedic actor. Same thing with Michael Keaton. They knew him for like the stepmom or, like these comedic roles, and people weren't ready. People were like, could he do this? I mean, I think people had just seen this nigga as Beetlejuice. So this movie wasn't just like culturally impactful for the comic book film community.
It really for film in general.
Exactly. It changed the archetype of what we think could play Batman, who we think play villains. To this day, we still got serious thespians cast as a villain. Meanwhile, you got people who known for comedic actors cast as the hero. I see Captain America, Chris Evans.
Yeah,
lots of comedies.
Right.
Even his run as the Human Torch was very comedic.
Right.
Played Captain America, and who they cast as the villain, my nigga Hugo Weaving from The Matrix, from Lord of the Rings. That's what I'm saying. Like the same archetype that Batman and Superman, 1978, Richard Donner classic, started by having Gene Hackman as the villain. Serious thespian, pretty boy. You can put anybody
and a straight up unknown in the role of Superman, because Christopher Reeve was that was his that was like his first major role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they said his smile and his height was enough. And he was beautiful. I love Christopher Reeve's Superman movie. Superman 2 to me is still in like top 10 greatest superhero films of all time. I mean, it don't got the glitz and glamour that that we are used to now with the MCU.
That's just because special effects. I mean, like, I feel like you missing out, and I try to have this conversation with my kids when we watch older movies. I was like, yo, like, you can't just get caught up in the effects. The effects is just effects. It's just movie magic. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something totally different. But you should really focus on the movie itself. You know what I'm saying? So I try to, have conversations with them about character, having conversation with them about story arc and things like that. Because when you look at it, if you watch Superman or Superman 2 today, and you know what I'm saying, like, you can clearly see the camera tricks and whatnot that they had to do in order to create this flying man who could do all these spectacular things. But if you sit down and just watch it as a regular film, right, and you watch the relationships and the dynamics between him and Lois Lane, between Lex Luthor and Mr.
It's spectacular.
It's an excellently done film. Both
Absolutely.
of them, both first two. Same thing, and the same thing with Batman.
What I tell people, one of my favorite scenes in comic book movie history, which is like, I'm always debating like the best scenes of comic book movie history in my brain. I even made a post, and if you go back to that post, I was like, what are the top scenes in like comic book?
I know. I commented on that post because I said it was Captain America versus the helicopter in Civil War.
Oh shit! Fire! Ridiculous.
I thought that was the most. Yo, and the funny thing is, it doesn't even count as a whole scene, right? It lasted like maybe 20 seconds, but I thought that shit was the dopest part of the MCU ever. To me, that's my quintessential MCU moment, yo. When Captain America swapped hands and pulled the helicopter in, I was like, yo, this nigga, wow.
So for me, that to me is number 2, only seconded to the force of a dying star when Thor took that shit. Because I was like, I remember sitting in the theater to watch Civil War, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm always a fan of when a comic book panel finally hits the screen. Like the scene in Avengers where you see all this stuff going on and it just focuses on multiple of the heroes, like Hulk and Thor stopping this, Captain America and Iron Man stuff. I'm like, that's a comic book scene. And when I saw him holding the helicopter, I said, oh my God, that's a comic book panel right there.
Right.
Yeah. But Batman 1989 was a culture. I mean, you had Prince do the soundtrack. Right. Prince did the soundtrack. This is big. They sold more Batman shirts than ever in the history of DC and Batman. You feel me? To the point, and they had a deal with McDonald's, and McDonald's made buku money off merchandise, and Warner Brothers made buku money off merchandise. So McDonald's said, "Let's keep this going."
They also sunk the franchise, though.
Yep, because when Batman Returns came out, people were like, "Hey, yo, why you market these children toys?" But you got a rapist penguin who murders children and Batman blowing niggas up. So by the time Batman Forever came out, the script was gutted. But this film led to the franchise that really gave us what would be the archetype for superhero films to come. Beautiful actor. Look, we could just insert Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt, face. Comedic actor, not known for anything serious. Cast him as the main hero. Throw Kurt Russell as the villain. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Thespian is the villain. Beautiful face, funny as the
You're right.
main hero.
It's definitely an archetype. You're right. What Tobey Maguire and not to say that Tobey Maguire isn't a thespian, because I feel like there's always like you can have an archetype, but then you're always going to have exceptions to the rule.
Oh, absolutely.
But
and
if
those
you
films
ask
are the
me,
ones that come out incredible.
If you
because
ask
you got
me,
a thespian as a goddamn as the superhero,
right,
like
exactly.
Dark Knight.
So we're gonna get to that, but like Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn.
Bro, can you hear me clapping right now, bro?
Like that for me was as big as whoever was my age when they heard Jack Nicholson was playing the Joker, right? Like that was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like all of a sudden it was like, because I remember and we're gonna talk about this when we get to Spider-Man, because like I have never liked Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker ever. Like I respect the films, right? But I never liked him. But when I found out about Willem Dafoe, I was like, oh, this about to get serious.
We'll get to that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So to Batman 1989, it sets the archetype, right? It's one of the it's at that time probably the highest grossing comic book movie of its time.
Bro,
then on top of that,
you know, months before Batman 1989 came out, they showed the trailer. You know, ain't no YouTube back then. You feel me?
Right.
They showed the trailer during some like romantic comedy. The romantic comedy made 10 million more than it was supposed to make because niggas came to see the trailer.
I can believe it. Because I feel like we're right on that cusp. I remember going like today, there's no excitement for the trailers. Right, like when I remember going to the movie theater down at the Inner Harbor, because that was my thing. I would go in and see a movie. I'd pay for one movie, I would stay all day. But like the trailers was just as exciting as the movie.
Right, because you didn't see them online.
That was the only place you could see them. Right, there was no online yet for you to go and just be like, oh, okay, I can sit back and watch trailers.
There used to be this show that used to come on E back in like mid 2000s, like 05, 06. This is before YouTube was like really, really popping. I used to watch that shit all the time. What the show would do, it would just basically show you trailers for movies coming out. I was addicted to that show. I was
yo, what show was that? I remember that show. Yeah, I can't think of the name of it, but I remember that show, yo. Like you're absolutely right, where they would just sit back. It was almost didn't it come on? I think it came on like right around the time Cisco and Ebert came on.
Yep,
and it was just trailers, and it was absolute fire. All right, let's jump forward in the years a couple bit. Let's get a little current. The Dark Knight.
There is not a superhero film in existence better than The Dark Knight. I said it in this tone so that no one could misconstrue my words. There is not a superhero film in existence better than The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan is a fucking madman and a genius.
He is a madman.
So do you realize? I heard him explain this shit and I fucking lactated. This nigga said, if you're wondering why Dark Knight is so different, he said, one, it's basically my superhero ode to the movie Heat. And then you realize that Joker scene with Batman is his superhero translation of Robert De Niro and Pacino. I thought that shit was fire. But what I really liked is what he said, The Dark Knight is different because I gutted a superhero film and flipped it. He was like, the hero doesn't get the girl, she dies. The villain doesn't die, he lives. The hero is
doesn't win.
Yes.
He doesn't win.
Exactly.
Right, like as far as movies go, The Dark Knight, first of all, like Christopher Nolan and the Batman movies have always done this. And I think you touched on it when you talked about how Batman Returns was such a dark film that it caused like this ripple effect, which got us Batman Forever and the Batman movie that shall not be named. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, you have The Dark Knight, where I think is like what would have happened. Like this is like a Batman film that's not worried about McDonald's tie-ins and marketing and stuff like that. Because I really do think that Tim Burton was on his way to that third Batman film that Tim Burton was supposed to do. Could have effectively been The Dark Knight.
Exactly. You gotta understand, bro. But Batman Returns still gave us the Dark Knight trilogy. So the reason, they said the Batman. They asked Warner Brothers came to him to be Batman. His agent was like, no. And then his agent was at a party with him, and he was like, "Did I get any interesting calls?" And they was like, "Oh yeah, Warner Brothers wants you to direct Batman." And Chris Nolan was like, "Oh shit, that's different." And when he sat down with them, they was like, "Yo, people think Batman is a joke, nigga. We didn't watch Memento and Insomnia. We don't think there's a more serious director than you. I think you can get Batman back on tone." So if Batman didn't take that jokey tone because of Batman Return, we might not have gotten such a serious, amazing movie like Dark Knight.
Right, and you're absolutely right about that, because that was why there was such a large gap in Batman films. Like Batman was coming out like Bond movies was coming out, right? Like every 3-4 years. And Batman and Robin just killed it. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So you're right. If it had not
freeze in hell, Batman.
Right. chill.
I'll chill you next time.
So if we had not gotten to rock bottom with the Batman films, you're right. It wouldn't have set the stage for Christopher Nolan to come in and just totally flip it like he did. And let's talk about this, because for better or for worse, and I tend to think it's better. Okay, I like my heroes. I like my comic book films and my heroes grounded in reality. Did the Dark Knight overdo it? Did the Christopher Nolan trilogy overdo it? Because a lot of people look at that as the beginning of kind of like this very serious tone in comic book films across the board, right? And some people are like, I don't like that. They should be fun. They should be lighthearted.
Did not overdo it until it got to Man of Steel. There is nothing. You are supposed to ground Batman in reality,
right?
Because he's a billionaire in a suit. That is real. I remember there was this thing they did on A&E where they broke down everything you saw in Batman Begins and said could it exist. They talked about the material that his cape was made of. They said this exists. They said now to get a whole cape, you would need millions of dollars because this material was expensive as shit. He's like, but if you're a gazillionaire like Bruce Wayne is, this isn't that far-fetched.
Right, that's not that far-fetched, because it's not like you need 8 of them, right? Like 3-4 capes will do.
Krav Maga, the martial arts he did, they showed people doing the martial art. They was like, oh, it really is effective like he showed you in the movie. He was like, now could you take out 15 dudes? Who knows? But if you got the drop on niggas and they already scared, what you got to remember, Batman be scaring niggas before he fight them. Like, because they genuinely don't. There's a scene in Justice League War, the animated film, where he's talking to Green Lantern, and Green Lantern's like, so you don't have powers, you're not a vampire, you're not a bat? He's like, none of that. He's like, oh my God, are you just a guy in a bat's costume?
And next thing you know, he's holding Green Lantern's ring.
Right, and he turned around and smiled at Green Lantern like, that's how you get niggas. I put this fear in their mind. So it's nothing wrong with grounding Batman, specifically Batman. I'm only saying this argument for Batman. And maybe Green Arrow, but whatever. But anyway, because they just, CW just stole Batman's whole story and just gave this nigga. But okay, we have to get to that.
They really did. We don't have to talk about that.
We just not. Just enough whole podcast on my hatred to Arrow. We just don't have the time, G. But anyway, that being said, no, it wasn't a problem to do that for Batman. When they did it in Man of Steel,
let me clarify. Because my question isn't for Batman. I think we can all agree that for Batman, it works. Like, it makes absolute sense when you think about what's really happening. Like, this is, a traumatized millionaire, a traumatized nigga with money who's running, you know what I mean? Like, but it permeated into the entire thing, right? Like, some people, and Marvel the MCU has always been on the lighthearted side, right? But the Marvel movies that came before the official MCU kind of flirted with it too. This real like this almost this like over darkness. And you about to start talking about Man of Steel. So I'm gonna give you time to go ahead and frame your argument, but be careful, yo, because Man of Steel, yo, like that's my joint.
So one, you gotta understand, I'm a Superman fanatic. Like I have a Superman tattoo, Superman comic book collection before my house fire. Like Superman is my guy. He's my hero. Superman trivia, everything. Like, don't give me none. I'm rusty.
Batman is fine, but go ahead.
So that being said, I went to see Man of Steel in theaters 15 times.
I definitely paid to see it 5 times. I remember that. I enjoyed it that much.
The opening for me, I was like, this sets up for one of the greatest sci-fi action movies of all time. This is amazing. However, it wasn't dark and gray. Yes. Did I enjoy the serious tone? Yes. Did it shock the shit out of me when Superman snapped Zod's neck? Yes. Did the city get destroyed? I said, well, if this is the first time this nigga is fighting super villains with his superpowers, then yes, realistically shit would get destroyed. I didn't mind it so much, but I recognize Superman should have a little bit more color than this. Superman should smile a lot more than this. He's a down on the farm country gentleman. He a whole redneck country gentleman. Superman is a good old boy. He smiles to people. He's a, how you doing, ma'am? I'll fix your car for you. There's a scene, and I tell everybody, it's one of the greatest scenes in superhero movie history. Like I cry almost every time I see it. Pretty much like every time I watch it. Superman 2, at the end, where he's fixing the American flag on top of the White House, and the president comes out and says, "Thank you, Superman. We're glad to have you back." He's like, "You're welcome, and I'll never leave you again." To me, that one scene, I'm tearing up now. That one scene, like real shit, like that one scene says everything you need to know about superheroes and Superman. And like, he just a little smile. Like, I'm sorry. I had a moment where I doubted what my mission was. And I'm sorry, but I'm here for you forever. And like, that shit touches my heart. Because Superman, in that movie, we had to see him be vulnerable. We had to see this nigga, that nigga just wanted the real life. Nigga wanted the real life. So Man of Steel, you compare that to that. This nigga, somebody disrespect Superman. This nigga like, all right. Remember when the nigga fought Superman, beat him up, and Superman 2, he came back, fucked that nigga up, quick done. This nigga gonna put fucking logs through his truck. I said, God damn.
Right.
Said, damn, Clark. Damn.
But you know, I think that there was something to Man of Steel, and that I don't. You know, like I think it spent more on him becoming Superman, right?
Absolutely.
Than we've seen in other films. Like, and it's funny to say that because in the first one we saw his backstory, but his backstory was really just like him growing up in Kansas. There wasn't really a why to him being Superman, right? And I kind of enjoy taking the moment to like ask the question, like, yeah, I can do all this stuff. Like, but why should I? Right. And I think that, the whole dichotomy with Pa Kent and like, maybe you shouldn't be out here trying to be the savior of the world. Right. Just because you can. I did enjoy that. I thought that it could be more colorful, but I think the studios are really struggling with how to bring Superman to life in the modern age. Right. And I think Man of Steel was a valiant attempt to do that. And here's my thing about Man of Steel. I thought Man of Steel, I think that Man of Steel doesn't work when you start to look at what came after it, Batman versus Superman and Justice League. Because I think for one film, him trying to figure out who he was, why he's doing this, works. But then the sequel, it's like, okay, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I've made my decision. I am Superman. And then you start to incorporate those elements back in, right, in a realistic way.
Bro, we can't even.
But to
talk about
keep
that
him
movie,
on this
bro.
dark path where he's constantly second guessing himself, and because of that, he's making dumbass decisions.
Bro, Batman
Yeah.
versus Superman is the worst fucking.
We're not. Yeah. That's why it's
Yeah,
not on the list. We
yo,
just go right over that.
that
Let's
shit.
talk
But
about. Let's talk about one of my favorite superhero movies. It might be my favorite superhero movie next to The Dark Knight. But it holds a special place in my heart, and that's Blade.
Talk about it, bro.
Blade holds a really special place in my heart because a lot of people don't realize, like, when people start talking about this, like this current stage that we're in of comic book movies, a lot of people are either giving, like, the credit always goes to one of two movies. It goes to the original X-Men, Bryan Singer's X-Men, or the first Iron Man, right? The first Iron Man being the official start of the MCU.
Right.
And X-Men, for some reason, is always touted as like the first superhero film of like the 2000s. And I'm like, nigga, nah.
When technically
that shit off.
Blade is the first MCU film, but Avi Arad didn't think they was like, look, if it's a hit, then we just made a hit out of a nothing character. And if it's a miss, then ain't nobody gonna know it's Marvel. I remember a couple years ago, Kate Beckinsale was at a Comic-Con, and nerds, these are nerds, it's Comic-Con, my nigga, it's Comic-Con. And they gonna ask Kate Beckinsale, can we see a you and Blade crossover? And she was like, Blade's a Marvel property. And people were like, what? I said, people don't fucking know, but you know, Black hero syndrome. You feel me? Before Black Panther, niggas ain't give a fuck about black heroes. Blade holds a special place in my heart because it's the first time I went to the theaters and saw a black man as a superhero. Don't get me wrong, yes. Spawn was what it was, but the nigga spent half the movie burnt. Ain't nobody know he was a nigga. Blade, one of the greatest scenes in movie history. I'm gonna fuck with nobody say they can suck my dick if they don't agree. Blade getting shot by the cops and like, are you out of your motherfucker? You out of your goddamn mind? And them cops running. I said, oh, this. I remember my father took me to see it. We was at this party of my godmother's, rest her soul, and me and my cousin Keon. There's all these adults smoking and drinking. My father was like, these kids don't need to fucking be here. So he just took us to see Blade. And I'm just sitting in the theater like, oh, my father loved me. This shit fire. This shit fire.
Fire. But it holds a special place for me because it really did. It was the first truly successful comic book movie of the new age, like outside of a Batman or Superman film.
Facts.
Like Blade came first, and it was a black man, and he never gets the credit for it. He predates the X-Men by at least a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look it up, Blade came out about 18 months
1998
X-Men.
Yep.
And yet a lot of people, when you talk to them, will hark back on X-Men as the like starting point of the modern comic book film age, if they're not talking about specifically about the MCU. And I'm like, yo, y'all give no respect to my man. Blade was that character.
And I'm gonna say it, and they ain't gonna like it, but I'm gonna say it. Blade 1 is better than X-Men 1. Whoops.
It is though.
It is though.
It is though. Because X-Men 1, see, and I feel like I could have this conversation with you. I argue with people because there are people out here who are arguing that Endgame is the best MCU film ever. And I keep trying to tell niggas, I be like, look, yo, as an event film, it's cool because we finally got to see what we were waiting to see for like 8 years. We were waiting to see this, and we got to see it. And that's great. We got to see all of our favorite characters in one film, in one scene together. That's all great. But just because it was it's really like the only existing event film in comic book history so far. Because this really what it was an event. Because I keep telling niggas like, yo, Infinity War is far superior to Endgame as a film, as a movie. It's far superior to Endgame.
The last 45 minutes of Endgame is one of the greatest superhero movies I've ever seen. Every minute.
The 45, that last 45 minutes is really the only good 45 minutes of the film.
Every minute of Infinity War.
Lackluster.
Every minute of Infinity War is perfect.
Every minute. every minute.
From
They
them
taking it
replacing
from the jump.
From them replacing the Thanos is coming, because in the comic book it was Silver Surfer who crashes on Earth and says Thanos is coming. But for them to replace it as the Hulk, and he lands and starts powering down, like you can physically see the strength leave him as he becomes Bruce Banner.
Yeah, because you saw how you had just seen him get his ass handed to him. Like, yo, like let me tell you something about Infinity War. Like, I thought that Thanos was gonna be this nigga, like a lot of times the big bad come in and he kind of like in the background, he got his armies, he got his what's the name. Yo, they start Infinity War by making it very, very clear that this nigga Thanos is a real threat, not to be fucked with, when he single-handedly manhandles the Incredible Hulk. Like, after what 5 films of watching the Hulk just smash through everybody, no problem, except for what, maybe Thor when they had their little bout in the ring and get destroyed. Like, it wasn't even like,
because you know how niggas be talking.
It was a fair fight.
You know how niggas be talking. Niggas always be like, especially in this MCU shit, niggas be like, all right, he tough, but what gonna happen when the Hulk comes smash his ass? That's what happened in Age of Ultron. That's what happened in the original Avengers. He just slung Loki's ass. This nigga Thanos said, oh, you got me fucked up. This nigga Thanos squared up with the Hulk and was like, bitch, I got hands. And beat his green ass. I was like, oh, so all y'all thinking that Hulk is going to be the savior of the film? Done. Hulk, you bodied, boy. You fucking bodied.
Early. We 10 minutes in.
My nigga, you should. I wish I could have had someone record my face. I was like, God damn.
I couldn't believe it. I think my jaw, I think my jaw literally might have hit the floor when that happened.
They set the tone early.
Set the tone.
Thanos ain't nothing to fuck with.
Right. But that to me, that film as a whole, the storylines, the arcs, the character developments, all of it to coming together, and then with the way that it ended and the weight of it. There are movies that are far better than Endgame, although it doesn't take away from the fact that Endgame is the ultimate, like that last 45 minutes of Endgame
is the ultimate superhero movie experience.
There is no better experience in the MCU than the last 45 minutes of Endgame.
I have yet to watch it and not cry when they start coming through the portals.
Yeah.
That shit.
No, that's such an epic moment.
They harken back to what I consider the best MCU film, which is Winter Soldier, and he's like, on your left.
On your left. So that's where me and you can agree. I still think that the best MCU film, like all around, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and actually, that's tied now with another property we're gonna talk about later.
Winter Soldier, good.
But The Winter Soldier was just a phenomenal film. Like, and not even just a phenomenal comic book film. I mean, it could have been like Chris Evans as
Jason Bourne.
A Jason Bourne-ass Bond type super spy. Like, and it still would have been a good film. Like, you take out the superheroics in it and you still have a good film. Like a good
Marvel has been doing this shit. Like, yo, and they owe the Dark Knight for teaching them how to do it. All you gotta do is take a genre style film and just plug a superhero in. Because what is Dark Knight but a crime drama?
A crime thriller. It's nothing but a crime thriller with superheroes in it. And you're right. And that's the start of like the genre. And I think Marvel really capitalized on this, right? Mm-hmm. Because
Winter Soldier, spy film, like spy or political thriller.
Spy film. You had the buddy comedy with Thor, Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. Like they really hit a stride.
What is Guardians of the Galaxy? Strange. But The Office in Space.
The Office in Space. You're absolutely right. And then Doctor Strange is really just like a flip on Inception.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about the obvious visuals of that one scene, but even just like, and it's playing with time, with it's playing with like reality and like what is.
Oh, Spider-Man: Homecoming ain't nothing but a John Hughes film with fucking with Spider-Man.
With Spider-Man. With Spider-Man. Speaking of which, let's talk about Spider-Man. Specifically, Spider-Man 2. I am not a huge fan of the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. I actually, up until like this is pre-Tom Holland, I felt like the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, that was my Spider-Man film.
Really?
Like, yes, I enjoyed that movie from front to back. I recognize that they took some liberties with the Peter Parker character. I was willing to forgive that because I think everything else about that movie was just perfect. From the seriousness of the lizard, all the way to that scene in New York, because like a lot of like if you've read Spider-Man and you know Spider-Man comic books are like a homage to New York City.
Right.
And we see this in like the Spider-Man films. I'm not even going to say that this was the only one, but that scaffolding scene where he was trying to get to the building and the scout and everybody threw their boom mics, so the boom lifts over the street for him. I thought that the Amazing Spider-Man was a film that like I really hate that it kind of got trashed the way that it did, and I think it got trashed because Sony had to move quickly, and I think a lot of people didn't understand that. Sony had to deal with Marvel. They have to continuously pump out Spider-Man films every 3 to 4 years, or the rights automatically revert back. And when you got a cash cow like Spider-Man, you don't want to lose those rights, right?
I absolutely despise the Amazing Spider-Man films.
Okay. Tell me why.
I say this. I liked Andrew Garfield.
Right.
He, to me, was everything. And I'll even say that Amazing Spider-Man 1 is a low C-, a very low C-.
Low C-. Damn.
But I didn't hate it. And I did like Andrew Garfield. I do enjoy Andrew Garfield.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is horrible. Like, we don't even have to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
We don't even have to get into that. I'm just talking about the
only slightly better than Batman and Robin. And somehow managed to be worse than Spider-Man 3. How?
That's a very specific segue to be in, right? Like
right. I'm just like,
you almost have to be aiming for that in order to get there. Like, so slightly better than Batman and Robin, but somehow worse than Spider-Man 3.
And I tell you this, real shit. We could spend a whole podcast on Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I just want to say the electricity closing the gap. That's it. Electricity closing his teeth gap. I was done. Clock me out. I was like, done. And I was looking for a reason.
Works. Like, that's not how this works.
So anyway, with Amazing Spider-Man 1, things I didn't like.
So hold on. Before we get into that, because that's not the movie we supposed to be discussing, I think we kind of just segued off. Spider-Man 2. So
now, everything I feel,
Sam Raimi, I'm not a huge fan of Sam Raimi's Spider-Mans. However, Spider-Man 2 is a bona fide classic film.
Spider-Man 2 was one of the greatest superhero films ever made to this day.
It is.
Still
Let's
top
talk
10.
About that and what was the impact of that on like other films, on the culture as a whole for comic book movies?
I think even when you watch Blade, which is the beginning and the dopeness, X-Men, which isn't the worst film. I think there are X-Men films that are better, and there are certainly X-Men films that are worse. Yeah. I think it wasn't until Spider-Man came out that you really got an idea of where superhero films were going. The large-scale shots, the incredible villain fights. Like, you don't got no incredible villain fights in Blade or in X-Men. But
yeah, you're right. Like,
not spectacles
at the end of Blade. You're right. Not spectacles. Go ahead.
Yeah, not spectacles. Don't get me wrong. In Blade 2, when he go against Show and suplex niggas, I love it. But like, nah, the large scale of him versus the Goblin across the city, of the people throwing shit over the bridge, like, leave him alone. But then you get to Spider-Man 2. The train scene is one of the greatest comic book movie scenes of all. You saw the muscle rip, and you saw Tobey Maguire's face. I was in the theaters like, oh, this is the most incredible shit I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Which is one of my favorite things about when they incorporated Tom Holland in, and when it sold through a punch, he just cut it and it was nothing. It was like, oh, you have a metal arm? That's so cool. I'm like, oh yeah, y'all really never got to see Spider-Man's.
Yeah, they never got to see Peter Parker.
It's like y'all never got to see Spider-Man's strength compared to other Marvel heroes. So y'all really don't fucking know this nigga's OP as shit. But that train scene, I said, yo. And then when they carry him in, it's like, don't worry, we keep your secret. That shit. For me, I'm just like, your Iron Man, your MCU learned how large scale they could go because of these Spider-Man films. Incredible films. Incredible. Spider-Man 2, Alfred Molina, who they just said is coming back.
So, yo, this is and we can kind of get on that. We can touch on that like later down the line. I don't want to take away from what you getting ready to say because he is coming back, and this upcoming Spider-Man movie is fitting to be either really, really weird or really, really phenomenal.
It's because of Flashpoint. It's because of what's happening with the Flashpoint film. They was like, okay, you niggas going this hard, we going hard too now.
But you know what, yo? I'm gonna be honest with you. I got a bad taste in my mouth about that shit because we watched Marvel with so much success. And we watched DC almost crash and burn because instead of taking their time and building out their characters in their own way, they tried to speed shit up.
Right.
Okay. And while I understand that you got Doctor Strange and the idea of the multiverse coming in now, I'm like, I hope that y'all not just trying to throw a bunch of shit in because all of a sudden y'all feel like after 12, 13 years of like running this shit, you feel like you gotta keep up with your younger brother because they had a couple wins in the bag. What they got Shazam, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman in the bag, and all of a sudden
and Joker.
And Joker.
Joker made over $1 billion.
Joker did, yeah.
And so did Aquaman. Aquaman and Joker made $1 billion. Joker
made $1 billion. So maybe they are feeling some pressure.
The pressure's on.
Maybe they are feeling some pressure, but the problem is, yo, like, I just get a bad feeling because here's the thing, and like, first we got the news about Flashpoint. We always knew that Flashpoint was going to be the movie that they started with, right? Like that's been known for years.
Yep.
But then they started talking about Batman. And it's like, we had that awesome trailer with Robert Pattinson's Batman come out, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like these rumors, we get the announcement that the HBO Max is going to release the Zack Snyder cut. Then we find out that the Zack Snyder cut is getting cut into 4 1-hour episodes, effectively making this a 4-hour movie.
Yeah.
Then it comes out that they are bringing Ben Affleck back as Batman for the Flashpoint movie, along with Michael Keaton. And then there's been rumors of like, yo, what I think is about to happen, yo, and I think the studio kind of knows this, is that Zack Snyder's vision of Justice League is going to paint Ben Affleck. And I've been saying this for years. I was like, yo, I think Ben Affleck might be the best Batman we've ever seen on film. And I think that that's what's going to happen when we see Zack Snyder's version of Justice League. I think it's going to be a Batman that is going to blow people's minds. And now they're trying to keep Ben Affleck involved, where he's going to be the Batman for HBO Max.
I tell niggas, bro, Val Kilmer is my favorite Bruce Wayne. Batfleck is my favorite Batman. Christian Bale is the person who I felt did them both justice. Now, do I think he was a better Bruce than Val? No. Do I think he was a better Batman than Batfleck? No. But he did them both to a great level. That nigga, right. Batman vs. Superman is literally, this to me, and for several hundred reasons that I could spend an hour talking about, one of the worst superhero films I have ever fucking seen.
But one of the best portrayals of Batman on film.
It is the best portrayal of Batman. You are
That's why it's so hard to watch.
Right.
Like you can't fully ignore it because it's got this incredible. It's got the on-screen version of Batman that I'd been waiting for. But outside of that, it's a horrible film.
His fights, that fight scene in the warehouse, I was like, yo, this nigga just took the choreography from Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, yo, when he does this one block punch combo, spin kick combo, I was like, oh my God, it's Batman.
So
I was like, it's Batman.
Everything about that scene was incredible. From the diversionary tactic, the nigga came from under the floor, right? Like, all the way to just seeing the damage that he does to people, right? Because I always thought that was something that was getting scathed over. And then I don't know if you've seen Titans yet, but Titans don't hold back on like the damage that like Robin who does to people, right? Like if I catch you in these streets, it's on. And we saw that in that scene. So like the blood splatter when that dude's head hit the what was that, the box where he used the grappling hook, the box at the nigga, like I was everything about Ben Affleck's version of Batman in that movie was almost perfect. It was almost like completely picture perfect. And then Justice League just kind of ruined everything.
Everything. It was like
everything.
It was like Batman vs Superman failed, but you made one success. You brought us the best. That I was ready to see Batfleck get his own Bat film because I'm just like, yo,
I was so ready.
I was like, let this give me 2 hours of this nigga.
So because Jacob, I know that you're a film guy in general, like not just comic book films, but you enjoy film.
Absolutely.
So I know that despite the early, like the late 90s, early 2000s, where Ben Affleck was kind of cast in these like really superficial ass roles.
Daredevil, terrible.
Yeah, he kind of disappears for a little while, and then he kind of reemerges as this studio golden boy behind the camera, who also has acting chops. So now he's like writing and directing, and then he's starring.
Argo.
So what you get is Argo. You get The Town, right? You get movies like what is that? Gone Girl, right? Like, and you start to see what the studio saw, or like the business side people saw in a Ben Affleck, right? So when they were talking about the Batman being directed and written by Ben Affleck and Chris Terrio, who's like his writing partner, and then directed by Ben Affleck, I was like, yo, this might be the greatest Batman movie to ever go down.
Exactly. I was like, yo, if this shit got that talent, if I can see Ben Affleck do what he did in that one scene from Batman vs Superman for 2.5 hours, I'm fucking sold.
Right. So
and they said the villain was going to be Slade.
Yeah. And I heard, so what I read was that the villain was going to be Slade, and then but that Will Smith's what is it? Deathstroke?
Deadshot.
Deadshot. That Will Smith's Deadshot was also going to be in it. That they were going to write him into the film as a like kind of like almost like the reluctant partner in this particular story to Batman. So much potential squandered because
I'd be like, it must be a cash thing. There must be a money thing that I just can't see, because I feel like DC could be making so much better decisions. And I'm just like,
I think that's I don't think it's a money thing. I think that when you look at the film industry, you have two types of people. You have artists, and you have art. Well, it's more than two, but typically you have your artists / fanboys. Like, let's talk about comic book movies, right? You've got people working in that because they love these characters. They grew up on these characters. They want to see these characters. And then you have the people who are looking at market data And you know what I'm saying? These are the people who said Michael Keaton wouldn't make a good Batman because people only know him as a comedic actor. Right. And don't understand, they didn't understand that, you could pretty much put anybody in this role. You know what I'm saying? As long as you got a dope villain.
These are the people who allotted only $50 million for the first Deadpool because they didn't think he was popular enough of a character.
Right. And yet Marvel, and this is what I'm saying, like, I think that it's obviously, I think that the only thing that makes it about money is that you've got some people who are only thinking about money. Because after the success of the Blade films, after the success of a Deadpool, why would you ever not give time of day, right? If you're in the Marvel camp, why would you ever say no to bringing like a secondary or even third character to a film when you've had so much success in the past bringing these little known characters? Like, and maybe and in some cases they learn from it, because I mean, Jacob, how popular was Iron Man before the movie came out?
Not as popular as he is now. Jesus Christ.
People really walk around acting like Iron Man was like the staple of the Marvel universe. And I'm like, wait a minute, time out. No, he wasn't. Like, we had the Marvel Power Hour as kids. We all, like, yeah, I remember that. And like, but like, let's be clear here. When we used to have these massive conversations about who was who in the Marvel comic book world, like, I'm not going to say that Iron Man wasn't mentioned, but let's not
he
act
wasn't
like
mentioned
he was
as much as Spiderman.
Exactly.
Wolverine.
And I was like, so that for me, that was Marvel kind of taking what worked in the past and said, listen, we could start this with a Captain America, or we can try to do it again with the Incredible Hulk. But let's take something that we haven't done before. Let's take a character that, and sometimes that's a safe bet, right? Because if Iron Man had flopped, everybody would have been like, oh, well, it's Iron Man. It's Robert Downey Jr. He's been flopping for a while now. No harm, no foul, right? And it turns into like this huge success, and everybody's like, Iron Man's been their favorite movie, their favorite comic book character. Like, nigga, no, you wasn't.
Let me tell you something. You talking to a nigga, Iron Man toys as a child, bro. I had War Machine, I had the Iron Man big ass action figures, bro. The 12-inch ones, big ass ones, bro. I'm talking about Iron Man original 1960s cartoon on VHS. Iron Man, Tony Stark, he's the coolest cat. He'll make you feel with the heart of steel as Iron Man. Like, nigga, I got that shit. I promise you. I've been a nerd my whole life, bro. Niggas ain't start having no fucking Iron Man conversations till after the first movie. Then I be reminding niggas, you're not an Iron Man fan. You're a Robert Downey Jr. fan. Because he don't act like how fucking Iron Man acts. He's rich and an asshole. That's about it. The type of character, the comedic timing, I said, this is very Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and not Iron Man, which one of the movies I hated in the MCU, Captain Marvel, was so bad because she played Carol Danvers, who is a boring fucking character. And she played that boring character perfectly in that boring ass movie. And I wasn't mad at her. People, like, somebody even suggested on Facebook, had me dying laughing, that I didn't like Captain Marvel because if the movie's not for us, it's for women. It's for to see a female. Clearly, you have a problem with female. I said, bro, Long Kiss Goodnight.
First of all, like, none of you women, like, and I'm not gonna say none of them, but like, most of the women that was saying that never picked up a Captain Marvel.
And this was a guy who said this shit. This was a guy who said this shit.
And even a guy, I'm
like, first of all, my nigga, Buffy is my favorite television show of all time. Like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, untouchable. Watch Long Kiss Goodnight every fucking year. Especially it's coming around Christmas season. I love Long Kiss Goodnight around Christmas season. And nigga, I went to see Wonder Woman 6 times.
I saw Wonder Woman 4 times in the theater.
So niggas testing my love for film because of her. But like, her thing is, like, I was like, yo, the actress is doing a great job playing Carol Danvers. Because if you read Captain Marvel comics, Carol Danvers is mad fucking boring. Most interesting thing she did in the comic book was fuck War Machine. I was like, whoa, this is different. Go ahead, Marvel. Yay.
So Spiderman, Far From Home. Actually, no. Let's come back to that because let's come back to that because I think that's moving towards a conversation that we can have around the future of the MCU. Let's talk about Watchmen, the TV series.
How?
Stephen King.
I want to say this. I have to say this. Just give me a second.
Go ahead.
I'm a Watchmen fan. Graphic novel.
Of the graphic novel. Okay.
Read it in a day. Not even a day. Read it maybe 2 hours flat when I first got it before the movie. And I love the movie too. Zack Snyder's best film, if you ask me, next to 300. I say this. First thing I thought to myself, because I was seeing people rave about it on Facebook, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to binge this shit. How the fuck do y'all niggas like this? Because they are staying so true to the fucking graphic novel story. I don't know if you're not a Watchmen nerd like I am, who read the novel, read the little mini comics.
I thought the same thing, yo.
I
thought the same thing. Like, what's your frame of reference?
Right. Niggas was telling me, I just go watch a YouTube breakdown on every episode. I said, nigga, y'all must be confused as fuck. This shit is thick with comic book lore, and I loved it. 2, who could have ever predicted that it was going to be that black? Good Lord. That show is blacker than the Ace of Spades. That shit is blacker than Bernie Mac breaking up a fight between Whoopi Goldberg and Wesley Snipes at night. God damn.
That's what caught me off guard. Like, we knew that Regina King was going to be in it. We knew that. We knew that she was pretty much the star or the headline of the show. And that was about it. But, Regina King has had a long-standing working relationship with HBO. She's been in a lot of their stuff. I wasn't expecting it to be that black. And then the first episode, nigga, it opens up with the Tulsa Massacre. And I was like, damn. I was like, if this is any indication of where the show is going. And then, so you open it with, you open it with that. And then by the end of the episode, you know what I'm saying? Like, an old black dude, from everything that we can tell, then hung a white guy. I can safely say I walked away from episode 1 mind blown.
I was like,
from there, it just got better.
Tulsa Massacre to a lynched Klansman cop
in one episode.
I'm like, okay, I'm here. Mm-hmm. You've got me. The episode 8, a god walks into a bar.
Oh my God. First of all, let's talk about the title.
Yo, because her name is A Bar. And then a bar. First of all, it's a bar.
Somebody over there had a very, very, had a lot of fun plotting out and creating this show.
My nigga, it's not just a bar, it's a bar. That's just a literal double entendre. I said, these niggas are fucking fire. And then the dialogue, which to me, I was like, as a fan of the fucking graphic novel, I'm sitting there like, this is some of the best constructed Dr. Manhattan dialogue I've ever heard. It's incredible. It was perfect. To me, I was like, this is a perfect episode of television. And I have Hulu and the HBO on my Hulu, but I'm still debating just buying Watchmen season 1 on Blu-ray. I think I just need to own it. I need to own it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth owning. That's something that I would say own it. I have HBO Max, and I've always had HBO. But if I was gonna buy some, but I do have a stash of movies that I buy. And Watchmen definitely that's something I would definitely put my money up for. I buy the stuff that I know I just want because I want to support it.
Right. I just want to have that in my hands and be like, yo, I own this forever, bro. that shit is crazy.
Yeah.
That shit is television gold, comic book gold, black gold. I'm just like, how can one show be all these things? It was amazing.
Yeah. And then to go back and retcon, and I can't even call it retcon because just to reveal certain classic characters as African Americans. So in Hooded Justice, in Essential, and like and like and you know what the breakdown that you can't get, and I can guarantee you if you watch it on YouTube, you're not going to get the breakdowns from the episodes. Is the stories within the story of the graphic novel. Right, because remember in the graphic novel, it was telling like there was the overall story, but then through through the I think was it through the TV? There was something else going on where they were telling a story.
It was through the little comic book that Yo at the black kid at the stand was reading.
Right, with the sailor.
Yeah.
And through that comic book, you had this story within the story that was connected to the larger story. So like that's not something that you would recognize happening or you would make the connection with unless you knew. So when they were watching that TV show it was called
Marooned, the tale of the black freighter.
The black freighter, right. So in that there was the story within the story, and then they did that in the show. But you don't have no frame of reference if you don't understand the story of the black freighter and how it connected to the overarching story in the original graphic novel. It was crazy all the way around. And like, if it was crazy for someone who wasn't able to make those connections, because it was mind blowing for me.
Right.
It was absolutely mind blowing.
If you're a Watchmen fan, that show is like, holy shit, this is well written. Like I don't think I have seen anything that made me more satisfied as a comic book fan than every episode of that show. Because I'm like, not only you didn't just stick to the comic, you improved it.
Exactly. It was like the perfect sequel.
That it was.
It was the perfect sequel.
And I love Watchmen, the movie. Like I watch it quite frequently. I love that throughout film.
I like it. They took some big liberties in the movie, and I understood why. And it's not a bad film. I like it's definitely has what I found out about it recently is that it has some great rewatch value. Like despite the things that I don't like about it, I can actually sit and watch that movie from front to back. So I can't say it's bad. I thought it could have been better. I thought anytime that you can stay relatively close to the source material, I'm all for it. And my thing with Watchmen was like I felt like it did a really good job of that, and then it just like didn't in certain areas. I was like, why not go all the way? I was like, y'all came so close. It was like we adapted 77% of the graphic novel. But this other little 28%, like we gonna hold off on that. Like
if you feel like you got the time, the director's cut much better. It just adds to it. The director's cut is even better.
I might have to check that out. I don't think I've seen the director's cut, and the theatrical cut is long, so I know the director's cut is out of this world.
Oh hell yeah! But I'm here for it. I'm a fan of a 3-hour film. I like to be engaged.
If it's good, I can't do that shit for everything, but I am a fan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember people started complaining about the Endgame runtime, and I was like, look, nigga, I grew up in a black church. Bring me Thanos. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Facts. Like, yo, my nigga.
Yeah, I was nothing.
When niggas said, on the flip side of that, not even flip side, but like on the DC side, when they was like, oh, we cut an hour out of Justice League because who's going to sit through 3 hours of Justice League? I said, nigga, do you realize I sat through multiple seasons of the show? Nigga, one episode of Justice League was an hour. The fuck are you talking about? I sat through fucking 10 seasons of Smallville. Nigga, this 3 hours is nothing compared to the life I've spent reading and watching this shit. Give me 3 hours, bro.
Right. Bring me Thanos, like right now.
So fuck around me, nigga. I'm a Godfather fan. 3 hours ain't shit to me. This is how I breathe.
Right. Exactly. See, if you down for like them epics, like Casino, like 3 hours, Godfather, like 3 hours,
Goodfellas,
Goodfellas, 3.5 hours, Wolf of Wall Street, like they really got it messed up. And I don't know who they be catering to these days. I don't, because like
Shit,
everybody
gangs in
I
New
know,
York.
right, gangs in New York, like Braveheart. Like, who don't stop to watch these films? Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like movies like Braveheart, Gangs of New York, Forrest Gump. Like these were day killers. These were the movies that you be on your way on going to somewhere, and they just happen to be on TV, and the next thing you know, you done sat down, took everything off because you watching it.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like they would stop you in your tracks. Like, don't nobody care about no 3 hours. But moving on to our next piece, we're gonna keep it in the TV realm for a second. Lucifer. And I want to talk about Lucifer in the light of there are a lot of works out here. And there's this, like, it's almost like its own subgenre of these obscure comic book titles or limited runs, right? Like limited edition runs of stuff that has been made into a film or TV show like Lucifer. And most people love it and have no idea that it's actually it's actually the source material is a comic book or graphic novel.
So many. So
there's quite a few.
Like The Gifted.
The Gifted. What's the other one that was on Hulu? And I mean, I guess you kind of know because you know they have Marvel attached to them, like Marvel The Gifted, Marvel. What was the Cloak and Dagger?
What was that one that was coming on FX? Really, I wasn't a fan of it, but
so there's Cloak and Dagger, there's The Gifted, these are all on who? Well, you said FX. Legion. Oh my! You didn't like Legion?
No.
So next to Watchmen, I think Legion is probably the most prolific comic book show that we've had. Next to Watchmen, and there's 3 seasons of Legion. That I can't speak for the final season because I haven't seen it yet. But I can tell you that first season of Legion, and specifically how they talked, like they connected it to like mental illness, and the way that you watch these mutant powers play out on a mental psychological level, it was amazing, bro.
It's almost like they wrote the perfect script for New Mutants, and New Mutants didn't use it.
Possibly. Because I just saw the New Mutants and I actually wasn't that disappointed in the final product. But it could have been better. I was like, yo, if this is how Fox wanted to go out.
Yeah,
but, have you seen Lucifer?
I have watched many episodes. I'm not attracted to the series, but what I have seen is very good. Good. But
initially so first of all, I was familiar with the source material, right? Lucifer is a show where basically the devil gets tired of being in hell. He decides he's going to take a sabbatical. All right. And it's all about his time. He comes to LA and he's a nightclub owner. And then he still enjoys punishing people. So in the show, he takes a position with the LAPD. He starts helping them solve crimes and stuff like that. I always liked this show. I thought it had a certain appeal to it. But it started out on network TV. And one of the things that I hate about network TV now is I'm like, look, yo, if you can tell a story in 13 episodes, tell that shit in 13 episodes. There's no reason why you need to be giving me 24 and 32 episodes a season. Like one of my favorite fucking shows of all time is The X-Files. And it literally pisses me off because the entire series is on Hulu and I cannot bring myself to really get into it because there's like 27 episodes per season. And I just don't need that much content. Like it's just not enough story.
I was just having a conversation.
Ain't a story in the world that take 27 episodes per season to tell me. And then when you think about the X-Files ran for like 11 seasons. No.
Yeah. Bro, so I was just telling niggas.
That was that whole network TV issue. But Lucifer eventually transitions to Netflix, and now they whittled it down to like 13 episodes.
and it's perfect.
More cohesive story.
Bro, I tell niggas all the time, bro. My new CW goat, because I've been a CW WB avid show fan since the 90s, bro. Like, you feel me? I go back to Birds of Prey, the show. You feel me? Like old school shit. Final episode fight, they fight into the song. Running through my head, running through my head, running through my head. Yo, big fan, bro, big fan. So I'm CW for the death, nigga. Angel, Buffy, Smallville. You feel me? This is my life. I spent my life on this shit. My CW GOAT is the 100. 100 is the only CW show where not a single season has been trashed, and it is because of exactly what you are talking about. They don't 22 episodes this shit. So there's no time for filler. There's no time for no stupid fucking musical episode.
And that's what you realize, yo. It's all filler.
Yep.
It's all filler. And Nate and I had a conversation. I think we got it. We got into like a debate about that because in episode 1 or 2, where we talked about this very thing. And Nate is very much a fan of like the longer episodes, like, you know, the longer number. You know, he actually is in the reverse. Like, he feels like as soon as he's starting to get into a story, it's over. But I'm like, yo, like, it's about telling tell me a story and then move on. Either go to the next story. Like, a lot of the shows that we grew up on, yo, like, they're hard to watch for me now because they just like. And then when I think about some of the shows that were like close to my heart and they just fell off because of that. So like Lost. Like, Lost was one of my favorite shows when it was out. And after like the third season, it was just like, yo, like, y'all just throwing anything at the wall because you contracted for 28 episodes. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to now in this streaming era, you get some writers, some directors, some producers together, and you tell a story. And if it takes 22 episodes to tell the story, then go ahead and do 22 episodes. But what we're finding is that it really don't take episodes to tell me a story.
Bro, like, why we talking to my niggas about, like, because we've done it, you feel me? I didn't binge all of Smallville at least 3 times in my life. Buffy, I do a Buffy binge like every year.
And that's got to be rough.
Yo, it is.
I mean, and I know you enjoy it, but just the time.
I say this.
It's got to be rough.
The way the episodes are written, it makes the binge go by. And I'm like, okay, I like this. But with Smallville, oh my Dios, the fucking filler, bro. I'm just like, bro, why are there so many pointless fucking episodes of this show? And I'm not going to lie. Netflix spoiled me, bro. Because Netflix gave me Umbrella Academy in 10 episodes, and it was fire.
Fire.
Daredevil, 12 episodes, fire.
Fire.
Like, it's like you said, yo, you don't have to. You really can tell me a contained season story. And for me, when we run into the problem that Nate runs into, it's like, damn, I felt like I was just getting into the story. It's like, well, this is how television works, baby. Because now you're going to watch season 2.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things that, for me, season 1 of Heroes, which is one of the greatest seasons of television I've ever seen in my life.
Another one that lost its way.
After that, by season 2, I mean, also season 2 happened during their writer's strike, but
that's true. I always think about the writer's strike.
Yo, like, that was season 2 of Heroes, which was ass. That was season 7 of Smallville, which is one of the worst seasons of anything I've ever seen on television. But that being said, yo, there is so much shit that they just burnt through in those 22 episodes. I'm like, you didn't need to do this. You could have 12-12 fire show.
Yep.
12-12 fire show. First season of Empire was pretty decent. 13 episodes. Next season, horrible, ridiculous.
22 episodes.
22 episodes. Right. It's filler. It's filler, and it just
it just takes away from the magic of the show. But Lucifer started out like that. And they had these really, really interesting storylines where you get all these like biblical characters and you kind of get to see them. And you know, it's a writer's perspective. It's always somebody's perspective, but it's very interesting. I thought that they took the characters biblically and like made them relevant and kind of gave them issues and things that were relatable to like them being thrown into like present day. like I thought that was just an interesting one to throw in there because there are these shows, Lucifer, the one you just named, there's Legion. There's some that are clearly are related, but then there's a lot of stuff that I don't think people realize is a graphic novel. So like Road to Perdition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Tom
a
Hanks.
graphic novel, which is a movie, which is a really good movie with Tom Hanks and Daniel Craig. That was a really, really departure from what we are used to seeing from Tom Hanks, but just an all-around good film, especially if you're into like period/gangster films.
Facts.
This was a good one. A History of Violence with Vito Mortensen.
Talk
And
to them. They don't know, bro.
and, yeah, like it also a graphic novel. So there's like a ton of work out there that people will be watching and loving these shows and not even realize that they are comic books, right? Because comic books come in all shapes and forms. So let's take it up to we got a new iteration of Spider-Man. He's 2 movies in.
Good
and two very solid, good movies.
Solid.
And the funny thing is, I picked Spider-Man: Far From Home for us to talk about and to talk about like what it means, like in the context of what it means for comic book films, because I really wanted to talk about this partnership between Sony and Marvel and how that we might see similar things happening around the industry because of the success of that partnership. So I wanted to talk about that, and I just wanted to talk about because Spider-Man 2 was this great sequel that really kind of made its mark on the genre as a whole. And I don't know if Spider-Man Far From Home is going to have the same effect on the genre as a whole. But as far as sequels go,
damn good.
Spider-Man Far From Home is bro. Like
we talking. So first of all, everything we talking is post Endgame. So now we all know what people want because Endgame is the highest grossing film of all time now. Niggas want to see multiple heroes in a film. Stop pretending all these niggas ain't around. One of my biggest complaints about the MCU was after Avengers happened, movies like Thor: The Dark World didn't make sense. I'm just like, why did the Avengers come about to stop an intergalactic invasion? Okay, here go the Dark Elves intergalactically invading Earth. Where the fuck are the Avengers?
Right.
Tony Stark's house getting fucking leveled by the Mandarin, the fake Mandarin. Or was it Gideon? Whatever his name is. I was like, where are the Avengers? Like, oh, right. You don't just destroy Iron Man's house, bro. Like, nah, nigga. Where the fuck are my niggas at? It didn't make no fucking sense to me. It angered me greatly. So we're not living in that because they talk about in the next film, you got Doctor Strange about to be in this motherfucker. And Doctor Strange's movie, they say the witch is going to be in there. Wanda. So you see what I'm saying? Like Far From Home, especially because I like some of the funky shit they doing. Like, ooh, when they brought my nigga J.K. Simmons back as Jonah Jameson, I said, oh, we getting funky. Oh, you niggas playing with the multi-dimension theory. I can see it. And now they talk about Alfred Molina coming back, and they talk about Archie Garfield and Tobey Maguire might pop up.
And Jamie Foxx.
I said, oh, you niggas trying to do an interdimensional the 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think post Endgame, you got to see more team up films because this is what we like the comic book for. One of my favorite issues in the last like 15 years of comics, bro, was like Deadpool going against Carnage. Even though Carnage is a known Spider-Man villain, it's like, yo, you niggas are in the same universe. And y'all might eventually run into each other. And I like that.
Yeah.
And Far From Home, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I just want everybody to know, when we were all superhero fans, niggas who know Spider-Man, niggas who know superhero shit, when we saw the trailer and it was like, he's a good guy, we all were like,
okay. You laughed, right? You like, that's a good one.
I was like, you must be fooling these non-fans. You must be fool, nigga. I know who you are. I know who the fuck you are, Mysterio. You're not fooling me.
That was my exact That's what I knew going into the movie. I was like, oh, okay, so he's definitely playing y'all. Like,
right.
but I mean, if you read the comics, even if you watch the 94 animated series, you know how Mysterio get down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so you know that, but dog, I can put Spider-Man Far From Home up in the higher genre or the higher ranking for a lot of reasons, but none more so than that initial illusion scene when oh my God. I was like,
oh my God.
Because that's what I was waiting for, and I was kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like, by that time in the movie, you know Mysterio is a bad guy if you didn't already know. You know he's a bad guy. You know that he's using this tech that, like, creates these illusions, but you really had not seen it in, like, its full effect. Yo, that scene in the warehouse, I was like, yo.
That's one of those moments where I told you, I was like, yo, comic book panel come to life. I was like, so how well is this shit gonna translate to screen when the Lord of Illusions? And they did it. I was like, oh, beautiful.
They did it. I was like, wow. And then even more than that, watching Spider-Man beat it, right? And like watching him plan how to beat the illusion. And how he, had to trust his Peter Tingle.
The Peter Tingle. Yeah, that's what she called it. Yo, that shit was magnificent.
How he had to really, he had to train himself to rely on his spider sense, in order to beat the illusion. Yeah, yo, it's just like I feel like this is how I feel. Sam Raimi gave me the Spider-Man that I wanted to see. It just gave me this really geeky ass, like unrelatable Peter Parker in my eyes. I did not like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. Amazing Spider-Man gave me the Peter Parker that I preferred, even though I knew that wasn't it wasn't really a true representation of who Peter Parker was, right? Because like he was cool, and
amongst other bullshit, but
it was kind of odd that he was cool, but at the same time, I thought that it gave me again a Spider-Man I want. But Tom Holland has kind of like
perfect
simultaneously like landed square in the middle. He's given me the Spider-Man that I want with the Peter Parker that I've always
absolutely perfect. I'm gonna go see it with my
perfect. And the writing for him and just the plot lines have been absolutely perfect. They've been really, really good.
I've never been more satisfied with a product. Like I saw Spider-Man 1, I was like, solid. Saw Spider-Man 2, solid. I'm like, give me the third. Let's see if you can do it. Ain't no Spider-Man franchise got to this third movie and ain't fucked up. Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man didn't even get to the third. So I'm like, come on, let's go. I'm here for it. And I like a lot of what I'm seeing, bro. Like Tom Holland is amazing as the character.
Yeah.
Writing him in the spectrum or the perspective of the MCU is like, yo, so he's connected to them, but they're about to connect him to Venom. I just saw they showed the Vulture on the trailer to Morbius. So they about to connect him to the. I'm like, oh, this shit about to get crazy. I'm here.
Well, Sony. So it's a real interesting thing. Like the Sony Marvel partnership almost broke down. The trades reported that it was actually Tom Holland that saved the whole partnership. I don't think it's a partnership that can last forever. And eventually Spider-Man, I think, is going to revert back to Sony. And how that relationship is going to work after that. But I know Sony was going to get gully with it. They was just like, well, fuck it. We got all these characters that came along with Spider-Man, and we'll just start making movies around those characters.
Bro, it's what Fox should have did with X-Men.
It's like we'll retain the rights to the character of Spider-Man by utilizing and continuing to make movies with these alternate characters. And once that relationship between Disney doesn't work out, if that happens in the future, then they can just always reincorporate Spider-Man back into it. But that's why you got a Venom movie. That's why you got a Morbius movie. And now they're talking about possibly doing a movie around Kraven the Hunter.
Ooh, I'm
And
with
some
it.
other, and like Black Cat, other like, so when and this I just learned this, when you buy, it's a movie, and so if me and you, Jacob, are a movie studio, and we go to Marvel and say, hey, we want to buy Spider-Man, we don't just buy the film rights to Spider-Man, you buy the whole package. So you don't just buy Spider-Man, you buy everything associated with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all of his rogues gallery, that's his supporting characters. None of those people can be used in the film, right? That's why in the Marvel, in the MCU, initially, what's her name? Scarlet Witch and her brother were not mutants,
Right.
right?
They're the miracles. That's what they
When
call them.
Fox bought the rights to X-Men, they bought the entire mutant catalog. So like all that time, the MCU could not refer to mutants at all in their movies. So when they chose to use those characters, and those characters existed in some type of like limbo status because they're connected to X-Men, but they're also connected to Avengers. So they were like, you can use them, but you can't call them mutants, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah. So it's
So
a real interesting dichotomy, but that's why we're getting all these Spider-Man related movies without Spider-Man actually being in them.
exactly. This is where Fox fucked up so much. You had the X-Men, but you also had Corsair and the Starjammers. You also had X-Force, X-Factor, Excalibur. Nigga, you had so much shit. You could have built a mutant MCU because
Right.
that's how many, nigga. Yo, we went a whole X-Men series, and there's not a single, like, okay, Gambit's in that one horrible Wolverine movie, but we're gonna talk about that. Yo, there is never a,
Wolverine. The problem is Wolverine. And the
Mhm.
problem, the problem in the X-Men has always been Wolverine. There's an article that came out a couple years ago, where the creators of X-Men, the animated series, right?
Mhm.
And they talked about how the X-Men, like, there were people who wanted to start the storyline with Xavier and Magneto, right? They wanted to bring Mr. Sinister in much earlier. They wanted to really harp on what the movies harped on, was the division between mutants who felt like, look, we just want to fit in, and mutants that were like, no, like, we're the better, and we should take this shit over. You know why they didn't? Because Wolverine. Market research indicated that Wolverine was probably going to be the most popular character, and you can't have your most popular character whose power is running around slicing shit with his claws, slicing into actual human beings. So that's why the first like 10 episodes of the X-Men, it's all about the Sentinels. Because he could slice and dice Sentinels on Saturday morning cartoons all day and nobody would have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
But they knew that the cartoon was going to be kind of centric around his character. And it's the same thing with the movies. They landed Hugh Jackman, a thespian, like a real thespian, who really brought Wolverine to life, and they just couldn't figure out how to make a movie without him. And if you watch the trajectory of the X-Men movies, it's all about not being able to make a movie without Wolverine in it, or him being a central focus to the story. Like, even when they did a good job with First Class, they
Love
didn't
First Class.
feel comfortable enough. And he was technically in First Class because he had that quick cameo when they were looking for all the mutants. But they still didn't feel comfortable enough moving forward with a movie that did not have him as a central focus. I read another article that claimed that the who did so what was it, Matthew Vaughn directed First Class.
Yep.
After First Class, they wanted to do a different story. They wanted to save Days of Future Past as like the end of that trilogy, right?
Which
And
they should have done.
which they should have done. They forced them to do Days of Future Past immediately after First Class so that they could incorporate Wolverine.
Niggas is stupid, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He's a popular character, and then he's always been a popular character. But then when you look at it from the movie perspective, like he was the shining light of the original X-Men movie, which we've already have talked about, wasn't all that great, but he was the shining star of that movie, and it just kind of went. It just went there ever since. I mean, look, yo, like part of the First Class I thought was great, but then Jennifer Lawrence became a star, Nicholas Hoult became a star, and that's why you got movies that if they're not centered around Wolverine, was centered around Mystique and Beast,
which was weird.
Which is weird. If you're an X-Men fan, that's really, really weird. Like, yeah,
I remember
Mystique and Beast have even had their limited runs in comic books, but to take an entire movie of all of these different X-Men and you're making Beast and Mystique the focal points of these stories, it's
stupid.
Weird.
It was stupid. It was weird. And I was like, this is time you could be introducing Gambit.
Yeah.
This is time you could have been introducing the Shi'ar Empire.
Mm-hmm.
But okay.
Yeah,
whatever.
That would have made much more sense in your Dark Phoenix movie.
Right. Oh my God.
How do you fuck Dark Phoenix up twice?
They brought back the same director. I said, yo, this nigga got it wrong before.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you giving him another chance to get it wrong? And it was just bad. It was bad. And I was just like, yo, they gave up on X-Men, bro. Like, I was just like,
yeah, mutants, it was clear. But you know what, yo? Like, can I and tell me if you think I'm wrong about this, yo? Like, outside of the whole Dark Phoenix shit, that movie wasn't that bad. Like, some of the action in that movie was top notch. That train scene was top notch.
The train scene is incredible.
That train scene is top notch.
I'm sorry, that scene where she makes him walk up those stairs was comedic as fuck, and I laughed when she forced him to walk.
Yeah, that was weird.
I laughed.
That was weird.
Too hard.
But the scene outside was going down outside.
There was some great action set pieces.
Yeah,
the movie
there was
itself.
Great action, but no, yeah, you're right. No,
but that's how I felt about Apocalypse.
Yeah,
I was like, there are action scenes in this movie. Like, my favorite part of Apocalypse,
Apocalypse just felt rushed to me.
It was very rushed. He touched all them niggas, gave them niggas powers. As soon as he got to Magneto, he's like, don't gotta touch you. Hey, did you ever realize there's metal in the ground so you can just destroy the earth? Yeah, I'm not gonna give you no powers though. Yeah, fuck you, giving you powers. That's dead. You OP as fuck already. I was like, of course.
Yeah. I mean, but that's true. That's true though. That's Magneto.
That's Magneto.
But yeah, yo, like outside of like, I just felt like the storyline, like the movie, I just felt like the movie was rushed. It was a short movie. It felt really short to me. And then wasn't quite sure what Apocalypse's beef was, yo. Like, and that's the issue with a lot of villains these days. It's like, what's your beef, bro? Like, I ain't understand where Apocalypse was coming from at all. And like, I'm telling you, in the age of Killmonger, I'm gonna need to know where you coming from.
Right, in the age of Thanos, Killmonger.
In the age of Thanos and Killmonger, I'm gonna say Killmonger because I feel like Killmonger came first, and he was the first villain where I was like, not only did I agree with you, but you actually changed the perspective of the hero, because at the end of the movie, like he basically went out and started, interacting with the rest of the world. Like that was Wakanda's position at that point.
Right.
Obviously, they weren't going out to destroy it like he thought they should do, but they definitely wasn't sitting behind and hiding no more. But in the age of like Loki and Killmonger and Thanos, I'm gonna need to understand your motivations, bro.
Right.
And I really didn't understand Apocalypse's motivation at all.
Also, Apocalypse should have been your last film.
Yeah,
it should have. You should have built.
It should have always ended with Apocalypse.
You should have built your X-Men cinematic universe and ended it with Apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. And like, quite frankly, whatever you did in Days of Future Past should have been what woke Apocalypse up.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
That's how that always should have gone down. That's how they. Oh, I just like you're right. Fox just completely stumbled it. So that brings us to our final talk of the night or project of the night, which is Spawn, the HBO animated series. I believe the first animated series to win an Emmy, or the first like animated comic book series to win an Emmy. Um, just
Perfect.
and a work before its time in a lot of ways. Jasmine, like it just, this was one of those works where I feel like the stars just aligned. Like, first of all, we got Keith David, who has this, like, if y'all don't know who Keith David is, if I played a clip of Keith David, you would immediately you would know who he is. Like, he has a voice that's just
the voice of Goliath,
as the voice of Goliath.
The voice of Spawn, the voice used to introduce Batman, the animated series, Batman will return.
Oh, and also Gargoyles.
Yep, that's Goliath. Yep.
Yes, Goliath. They're right, from Gargoyles. So Keith David has this incredible voice. He brought it to Spawn, and again, like this was like the animated show that you had to make sure that your kid didn't watch.
Right.
It was absolutely not for children. Very well written. Won an Emmy, but really pushed a lot of boundaries as far as like and I feel like it's a little bit unfair because anime had been pushing the boundaries for a long time. But because it's not the most popular form of animation
right.
in the United States, right? Like you have like anime.
It's a niche.
It's
like
a niche.
Anime was definitely Ghost in the Shell, Akira, way before
a lot
Spawn.
of those things were before Spawn, but Spawn was, it was the one that was it was universally broadcast first. I mean, it was HBO, so it was seen by a lot more. It was out there. And it took a lot of those elements that, for those of us who watched anime, were already used to, but kind of introduced, like, hey, let me kind of show you what animation can do outside
that
of
movie,
entertaining your kids for a few.
That show and Blade, grandfathers of what Deadpool is now, what Logan would become. It shows you that yes, you want to bring children into the superhero experience, and that's why you make Thor films. That's why you make PG X-Men films. That's why you make Superman. But the adult audience,
we want this too.
We want this too. Like my father, he watches the superhero films, so my mother watches them. He doesn't like a lot of them. My father loves Winter Soldier. My father loves Logan. He's like, these shits are great films. I said, my father's what, 62? I'm like, this is how you do it. This is how it's done. This is how you bring that demographic. You give them superheroes in a violent situation. And Spawn was I saw my parents watching Spawn. They wouldn't let me watch it. They didn't know I was watching fucking anyway. No.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let me watch it because they were like, yo, this shit's grown as shit. But they knew this shit was good. It's just it was just so well written. And it's one of the grandfathers of shit like Deadpool. Like, yo, rated R works for comics because Punisher is a rated R character.
Yeah.
Wolverine is a rated R character. Deadpool is a rated R character.
Yep. And we like that Marvel Netflix joint.
Ooh.
Between Daredevil, like, first of all, I really feel like all of those shows were really good. Depending on, but I think it catered to a taste. I enjoyed all 3 seasons of Daredevil. I thought the first season of Jessica Jones was absolutely phenomenal.
Perfect.
Especially if Jessica Jones is like one of those shits that should be put in a time capsule, because I think that, just like when you take into account like the women's movement, the Me Too movement, and you kind of, when you think about what that villain was in the first season of Jessica Jones, like that's some shit that should be put in a time capsule and like, what I mean, buried.
Also,
like,
remember, this is
50 years from now.
Jessica is a very obscure character.
Yeah.
And it was brought to light better than most shows I've ever seen in my life. Season 1 of Jessica Jones, to me, I was like, yo, this might be one of the greatest Netflix seasons of anything ever.
Mm-hmm. And I was always debating whether or not Daredevil season 1 or Jessica Jones season 1 was the better of those shows until Daredevil season 3 came out, and I was like, oh, that took the cake.
Oh yeah,
Like, that took the cake.
unstoppable.
But yo, I think that Spawn, obviously, you know, like a lot of accolades, really pushed some boundaries, or not really, but pushed boundaries for people who otherwise wouldn't have realized those boundaries could be pushed.
Right.
But also, I think it laid the groundwork for a lot of the animation that we see today, and specifically in the comic book realm, because the DC AU is phenomenal. Like the DC animated universe is
DC animated universe is the strength and power of DC.
Marvel was okay. It really had not, in my opinion, gotten to where DC had gotten with their animated movies and shows.
Definitely didn't. But shout out to Planet Hulk though.
Shout out to Planet Hulk. And there was
Thor Ragnarok, whichever you want to call it.
I know, right? No, shout out to Planet Hulk, the animated show. There's the DC AU. And what else was I? Damn, I was right on the tip of my tongue, and I can't think of it now. But in the DC AU, like some of the stuff that we got, and I think that, you know, they obviously weren't looking to push the envelope to the extent of like a Spawn, but I think that Spawn may have given them an idea of like where they could.
Right.
Well, shout out to Sony for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which may
one
not
of the best Spider-Man movies ever made.
May not have pushed boundaries as far as like adult content or like, but was just phenomenal on all levels, from the storytelling to the animation to just everything. Like,
also showed you how well
multiverse Spider-Man ever.
Multiverse characters can work in a film and it can sell. And I think everybody realized that now. And niggas like, oh, we can really do this.
I'm gonna be honest with you, yo. I'm really disappointed that they're gonna continue with the Spider-Verse in the sequel.
What?
I am, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because while as much as I loved it, and I love that as
I'm ready to see Miles Morales by himself.
I want to see Miles Morales by himself. Like, why? Like, okay, he had his first adventure into the Spider-Verse. We don't have to keep going back to the Spider-Verse and pulling from the Spider-Verse.
Exactly. We can get that shit now.
Come up with a good storyline for him. Let's see him. He's now his world's Spider-Man. Let's see what he can do.
Exactly.
You know,
and they're
robbing
us of that
film. I would rather see that film than another film where somebody opens up another rip in the time-space continuum, and now either all of the same 4 Spider characters come back, or now we got a whole nother version of Spider character. It was fun the first time around, but if this is a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie, then let it be a Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? That's my only that's my only pushback on that. Because other than that, I thought Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a perfect film. I was just disappointed when I found out they were gonna stick with that theme through, like, you know, for the sequel. Like, just give me a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, if you can even see how much I loved it. If you look at my photo, I'm performing poetry in a Miles Morales Spider-Man hoodie.
Yeah.
Because I loved it that much. Like, that was a one-on-one slam I did. I was like,
good.
I said, oh, I want a powerful black hero. And Miles Morales. I'm like, yeah, definitely. Good.
Jacob Mayberry, y'all. Tell me the name of the album one more time.
The album is called Crippler Crossface.
Crippler Crossface, coming out on all streaming platforms by when?
December 31st.
December 31st. Brother, thank you for coming and bringing your awesome perspective and expertise to the Binge-worthy podcast. We appreciate you. For those who listening in, Black Chakra, real quick, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me everywhere, but you can follow me everywhere but home. I'm Black Chakra 88 on Instagram and Twitter. Jacob Mayberry on Facebook. Hit me up. I'll be posting real nerdy shits, bro.
And we are the Bingeworthy Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram as well at the Bingeworthy Podcast. This has been our comic book episode. See y'all next week, episode 9. We got 2 more episodes before the conclusion of our first season. So please come back, check us in. Put some likes in the comment or some, dislikes if you didn't like it. And also, we would love to know what you think. We thrive off of your feedback. So please let us know in the comment section what you thought. Bring them out for our next episode and might highlight some of those. So please, if you have any strong opinions or if considerations, please put them in the comments. And we'll see y'all next week.